Okay, let's dive into this explainer. Today, we're looking at one of the most brilliant and entirely legal systematic takedowns of the modern casino industry. We are talking about a group of incredibly sharp minds who essentially figured out how to drain Las Vegas of millions, literally treating the casino floor like their own personal ATM. And the crazy part? They did it without breaking a single rule. We're going to uncover exactly how they pulled this off because the mechanics behind it are absolutely fascinating, and I promise you it's going to completely change how you look at the games on a casino floor. I want you to picture this scene. It's Vegas, 3 a.m., a college kid is wandering the casino floor just holding a paper coffee cup that he never actually drinks from. He isn't gambling, he's just walking, stopping every few feet to glance at a slot machine screen and then tapping a number into his phone. Meanwhile, across the city in some quiet apartment, a massive spreadsheet is updating live. Suddenly, one number on that spreadsheet crosses a very specific threshold. The kid types a quick message into a group chat. Machine 63, it's ready, go. Exactly 90 seconds later, a completely different guy wearing a backpack full of cash sits down at that exact machine. He's not there to gamble either. He's there to collect a debt that the casino doesn't even know it owes. So it raises a pretty massive question, right? How on earth do you turn a slot machine, a device literally engineered from the ground up to take your money, into a guaranteed paycheck? Remember, these players didn't touch a single wire. They didn't rig any reels, they didn't bribe a slot tech, and they broke absolutely zero laws in the state of Nevada. All they did was read the numbers that the casino voluntarily printed right there on the glass, and they did the math. To understand how they achieved the impossible, we gotta look at how the casino industry accidentally built a trap for itself. See, for a century, the traditional slot machine was the perfect predator. It has no memory, no pattern, and the math is welded right into the microchip so that the house always wins in the long run. But casinos had a slight problem. Small jackpots are just kind of boring. Nobody's heart races over a $40 prize, right? So players would just walk right past them. The marketing departments realized they needed a way to make low jackpot machines exciting again. So they invented this brand new mechanic to lure gamblers in. It was absolute genius. Well, right up until it became their absolute worst nightmare. They called it the must-hit-by jackpot. It's basically a progressive jackpot that makes a very specific ironclad promise to the player. This machine is legally and mechanically guaranteed to pay out before it reaches a specified dollar amount ceiling, let's say $500. This creates a brilliant, totally primal psychological urge on the casino floor. When the jackpot meter is at $50, nobody cares. But as it creeps up toward that $500 limit, like $420, $450, $480, people start frantically feeding the machine. They know it's forced to drop any second. For a while, the casinos were just printing money. But what they didn't realize was that they hadn't just built a better mousetrap. They had accidentally put a giant glowing price tag in the window for anyone smart enough to read it. And this brilliantly illustrates the exact moment the math completely flips. Let's look at the number 490. If a machine has a must-hit-buy ceiling of $500, playing it when the jackpot is at $50 is honestly a terrible bet. But when that meter hits 490, the machine has almost no room left to run. It is legally obligated to cough up a prize of at least $490 within the next few spins. At this exact threshold, you stop asking yourself, will I get lucky? And you start asking a pure, simple arithmetic question. How much will it cost me to play until it's forced to pay? And how much is it forced to pay me? When you compare these two states side by side, the math is genuinely shocking. With the meter at just $50, your expected value is deeply negative. But look what happens at 490. It actually costs you less to trigger the jackpot than the jackpot is actually worth. The expected value crosses zero and just keeps climbing. You are now the favorite. That sacred, century-old house edge doesn't just shrink, it completely inverts. The casino has inadvertently created a savings account with a countdown timer, and it is mathematically paying you to sit there and push the button. Now, the people who figured this out, they aren't gamblers. The industry calls them advantage players. An advantage player never, ever relies on hope. When they walk onto a casino floor, they don't see blinking lights, and they definitely don't feel the thrill of chance. They just see a room full of little price tags, most of which are overpriced garbage. But every so often, they spot one screaming green number that the casino has accidentally put on sale below cost. An advantage player simply will not touch a machine unless the math has already been won before the very first spin. The contrast between a normal gambler and an advantage player is literally everything. A gambler sits down hoping for a miracle. The advantage player knows that probability is not luck. Luck is just one person having one good night. Probability is playing that exact same mathematical edge 10,000 times until all the miracles and all the disasters completely cancel each other out, and the only thing left standing is guaranteed, cold, hard profit. They essentially did to the casino what the casino does to everyone else.
let's move to and see how this builds into a full-scale operation, because obviously one person alone couldn't possibly watch a whole city full of slot machines. So these solitary players organized into highly disciplined military-style syndicates. They operated in 3 distinct phases. First, they hired an army of scouts, often just math majors or engineering students, who walked the floors taking inventory of every single meter in the city. Second, those scouts beamed data back to a central spreadsheet, operating exactly like air traffic control, ranking every machine by how ripe it was. And third, when a machine hit the magic threshold, they deployed those closers armed with backpacks of cash to secure the win.
But all that military precision? It created a totally bizarre, visceral problem on the actual casino floor. Think about it. What happens when a scout finds a golden machine at 3 a.m., but the closer with the cash is still 11 minutes away? Well, you have to hold the ground. Scouts would place a jacket over a chair, leave a cup on the console, or just sit down and play the absolute minimum bet, literally dribbling in pennies just to keep the machine warm. This led to heated, completely absurd standoffs. You'd have drunken tourists wanting to play, getting furiously angry at this kid who was guarding a slot machine with his life. To the tourist, it looked insane. But the scout knew that specific seat was a highly valuable positive expectation asset.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the glaring question it brings up. If the casinos knew exactly who these syndicates were, and they were constantly causing these weird scenes, why didn't the security guards just kick them out? Why lose any sleep over this when you literally own the building?
Well, it all starts with the law. Look at the legal definition of cheating. Cheating requires altering hardware, rigging outcomes, or using some kind of device to change the game. The advantage players did absolutely none of that. They were simply doing basic arithmetic on numbers that the casino freely and voluntarily printed on the glass for everyone to see. You cannot arrest a man for reading, and you sure can't charge him for doing math faster than your own marketing department. But even more than the law, the casinos were in a complete financial checkmate. Remember, the machine is mechanically obligated to pay out that jackpot. The money is already promised. If the casino kicks the advantage player out, the machine is still just sitting there, fully ripe, ready to burst. All the casino accomplishes by kicking out the syndicate is freeing up the seat for the very next random tourist to sit down and win the exact same money. The house doesn't save a single dollar, they just change which stranger they hand the cash to. Since they couldn't just kick them out without giving the money away anyway, they had to rely heavily on surveillance. If you look at the documented video from casino cameras during this era, they started hunting for the advantage player's tell. You see, a normal gambler bets big and presses their luck. An advantage player does the exact opposite. Surveillance looked for people on the video feeds who completely ignored machines until the meter peaked, then sat down and made the smallest possible qualifying bets. They coldly never chased their losses, and the instant the jackpot dropped, they stood up and walked away. The casinos had to create private blacklists just to try and freeze these teams out. So the crucial point is that the industry eventually realized a really hard truth. The exploit didn't live in the player, it lived in the number itself. The entire multi-million-dollar syndicate operation relied entirely on the fact that the jackpot meter was honest and readable. The very same green number the marketing team put up to lure in everyday gamblers was the exact weapon the syndicates were using to strip the machines dry. The bait and the weakness were identical. Since they couldn't outsmart the mathematicians with better math, the casinos had to change the game completely. They introduced the mystery jackpot. Modern slot machines still promise a payout by a certain amount, but the actual trigger value is now concealed deep inside a microchip. It is completely invisible to the player. The prize might hit at $200 or it might hit at $499, and you have absolutely no way of knowing. By blinding the machines, the expected value became completely unknowable, and if you can't know the math, you can't play the edge. In an instant, the syndicates were rendered powerless.
And that brings us to a truly chilling final thought for this explainer. The casinos didn't win by outsmarting these kids. They won by hiding the truth. There used to be an era where a gambler could sit down, look at a machine, and see exactly what their bet was worth. But because a few sharp minds proved they could read those honest odds and win, the industry permanently blinded its own machines. They hid the true odds from every gambler on Earth, and today they ask you to just keep playing in the dark anyway. Kind of makes you wonder what else is hidden behind the glass, doesn't it? Thanks for joining us for this explainer today. We'll see you next time.